It is expected that this session will provide the platform for a wide-ranging discussion on the diverse fields of international relations.
The session is chaired by Major General P.R. Vanigasuriya, retired, VSV, USP, NDU, USA, CGSE, the Chief of National Intelligence.
We have 4 eminent speakers here with us today to broaden our horizons, whereas one speaker will join in virtually. Dr. Satyanjal Pandey, High Commissioner of India in Sri Lanka.
Mr. Francois Pretorius, researcher, South African Institute of International Affairs, SAIIA, South Africa, who will be joining us online.
Mr. Nava Ramanan, Senior Civil Servant, Minister of Justice, United Kingdom.
Major General Chamila Munasinghe, WWV, RWP, RSP, USP, NDC, PSC, IG, the Commandant of National Defence College, Sri Lanka. Dear Madams and Sirs, we are extremely honored by your presence here at the session today. The session would be moderated by Brigadier RKR Pradeep Ratnayaka, RSP, USP PSC, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Defence and Administration of General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University. Now, I respectfully request the Chair, Major General P.R. Vanigasuriya, retired, the Chief of National Intelligence, to take the seat. He will be accompanied by Deputy Vice Chancellor, Defence and Administration. Ladies and gentlemen, let me have the honor of inviting all the speakers to take their seats. And Mr. Pretorius will be joining online.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me respectfully invite Colonel A.H. Ramindu Hasanta, RSP, PSC, the Dean, Faculty of Defence and Strategic Studies, to introduce our esteemed Chair of the Plenary Session 1 of Defence and Strategic Studies at General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. It's now my distinct honor to introduce our esteemed Chair of the Plenary Session 1 of Defence and Strategic Studies at General Surgeon Kotalawala Defence University, Major General P.R. Vanigasuriya, VSV, USP, NDU, USA CGSE, the Chief of National Intelligence. Major General Ruan Vanigasuriya began his military career in 1986 upon being commissioned into the Regiment of Artillery. During his career spanning over 3 decades, he has held numerous key command, staff, and instructional roles in the Sri Lanka defence establishments. These included Director of Training at Army Headquarters, Director of Media Center for National Security, Military Spokesman, Commanding General of 5th Division, and Commander of Security Forces in Northern Sri Lanka. His experience includes United Nations Military Observer in Congo and representing the Ministry of Defense in UNHCR sessions in Geneva. And he was instrumental in post-war training development and establishing crucial training institutions within the Sri Lanka Army. He holds a master's degree in military arts and sciences from the United States Army Commandant General Staff College, a master's in management Studies from Kotalal Defense University and completed a strategic studies program at Indonesia's National Resilience Institute in 2016. In the current role as Chief of National Intelligence, he is responsible for harnessing the different capabilities of state and military intelligence agencies towards the strategic well-being of Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, Major Vanikasuriya's career is marked by a series of high profile. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a very warm welcome to our Chair of the Plenary Session 1, Major General P.R. Vanikasuriya, VSV, USP, NDU, USA CGSC, the Chief of National Intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Colonel Hasanta Hennedy. The Vice Chancellor, distinguished keynote speaker, former Vice Chancellors, Deputy Vice Chancellors, members of the faculty, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I extend a very warm welcome at the outset to the distinguished members of the panel. Thank you very much for joining us today. In the context of interdisciplinary research to achieve sustainable goals, developmental, security, and many other goals. When you talk of sustainability, you can't distinguish that from inherent need to have security for sustainability to occur. When we talk of security, it brings to my mind, an old parable. I think it's an Indian one. It's related in Buddhism as well. So with Dr. Pandey's permission, may I relate that to you? Just to understand why it is important to have sessions of this nature, a broad spectrum conversation to understand what security is. It's about the 7 blind men and the elephant. I don't have to tell you the story, you know the story. When 7 blind men are told to describe the elephant, they describe it in many different ways. Some see it as a pillar because they touch the foot, leg. Some see it as a whip because he touches the tail. And some as a rock, and so on. In the same way, we can't take a holistic view of security without taking that broad view. Unfortunately, the blind men did not have that vision to see the full elephant, but we are not blind. We have to keep our open eyes and try and see the full elephant in understanding national and international security issues. So today, as we discuss international security and its new frontiers, we need to keep in mind, where are we at this moment? I'm not talking of the KDU, I'm talking of the era. We are in an era where there are many complex and challenging situations. If I were to ask this audience, what are the security challenges that we face as a country, or we face as a region, or we face as the world, each one of you will have different perspectives. In my view, today's security environment is undergoing transformation, with strategic competition taking new shapes, and climate changing becoming a hot topic, and then accelerated technical applications, cyber and AI, making any prediction irrelevant the following moment. We can predict something now, but in 2 days' time, that prediction would have a different shape because something new has come up. It's accelerated in that sense. On top of that, if you take those as key, like international strategic competition, the climate change, and the ever-changing technological developments, to make things more complicated, we have gray zone tactics employed by different players, and we have several maritime issues emanating from that. And then we have space and other security issues related to space. Then we have transnational crime syndicates affecting national security to a great extent. Then this morning, our keynote speaker was addressing about the need to have issues of social justice addressed, and then foreign interferences. All these things make this national security conversation more complicated. So we are fortunate today to have some clarity. We have 3 distinguished speakers. Let me introduce the first speaker. I beg your pardon, we have 4 distinguished speakers. One gentleman, Mr. Francois Pretorius, is joining online from South Africa. Welcome, sir. Welcome you to the session. And to begin the session, let me introduce Dr. Satyanjal Pandey, who will give us a 10-minute presentation on India's perspectives in the international security new frontiers and other concerns, regional as well as global. Dr. Pandey is a diplomat. He now serves as the Deputy High Commissioner of the Indian Embassy, Indian High Commission in Colombo, and he joined the High Commission in August 2023. Dr. Pandey has had interesting career. He's a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, and he joined the Indian Foreign Service in 2008. Started his career in Moscow, speaks fluent Russian, and I believe, don't worry, he's not going to deliver his speech in Russian today. And served in Kazakhstan, and then served as the desk officer for Western Europe Division, and also he served as the Undersecretary, Deputy Secretary, and Director in Finance Division of New Delhi Ministry of External Affairs for a long time. In between, he also served as the Regional Passport Officer of Delhi region. Like I said earlier, Dr. Pandey not only speaks Russian, he speaks obviously Hindi, and he speaks Bhojpuri, and of course, must be many other dialects in Indian subcontinent, but he will be conducting his presentation for 10 minutes on international security and its new frontiers from an Indian perspective. Dr. Pandey, over to you, sir.
No presentation. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Major General P.R. Vanika Surya, Chief of National Intelligence, Vice Chancellor Rear Admiral Dhamika Kumara, Deputy Vice Chancellor Brigadier Pradeep Ratnayake, Professor Dato Jasbir Singh, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Malaysian Defence University, Dr. Harinder Vedanage, Director Center for Strategic Assessment, Sir John Kotlawala Defence University, my co-panelists, Mr. Francois Pretorius, who has joined us online, Mr. Navaramanan, and Major General Chamila Munasinghe, Commandant National Defence College. Officers, ladies and gentlemen, Ayubowan, Namaskar, Vanakkam. It is a privilege for me to participate alongside this distinguished panel in the 18th International Research Conference organized by KDU. We have been given an enviable task to present perspectives on international security and its new frontiers in 10 minutes. The challenging part is that some of what I may say would need revision in next 10 minutes, given the lightning pace of geopolitical movements. The saving grace, of course, is a very magnanimous introduction for me, which is factual in nature, but a very pleasant flattery in the manner of delivery by Major General. I would attempt to present my views, but mostly questions to all of you in 3 parts. First, I would wish to lay my sense of current geostrategic landscape and then plug it in a medium-term perspective, finally concluding with expectations and apprehensions about the future. Friends, the world is in a state of polycrisis, a polycrisis for the nations, as well as polycrisis within the nations. Ladies and gentlemen, the current geostrategic landscape is arguably the most fast-paced, volatile, and unpredictable in the post-Second World War period. The stability of the world order of bipolar construct and related equilibrium was dissolved with the fall of Soviet Union. This played out over 40 years. However, by 2010, the unipolarity post-fall of Berlin Wall also got severely challenged with the rise of emerging powers, in particular that of China. The unipolar period somewhat lasted for 20 years. The proposition of a new G2 then did not find endurance with the rise of other poles such as India and other Asian, African, and Latin American economies challenging it. Friends, sometimes we appear to be in an orderless world. Some would argue that it is a world between the two orders. The balance of power today, including in our region, does not support the creation or clarity of a new world order. While the tendencies are towards multipolarity, the challenges from big powers to restrain the order to bipolarity or tripolarity remains entrenched. Often the conversation of multipolarity is limited to discussions of global order only, but a truly multipolar world cannot be envisaged with unipolarity in Asia or Africa or other parts of the world. To my mind, this is an important geopolitical context which should guide our bilateral and multilateral conversations. Currently, 4 broad drifts can be seen amidst this global order flux. Number 1, vulnerability of West as a single geopolitical construct. Multilateralism literally laid in hospice with strong currents of deglobalization. Number 2. Number 3, withdrawal of US from globalist role. Number 4, redefining of European security architecture and rise of India-China as critical actors to international development. What we see, therefore, is a change in old order to a current, arguably an orderless world. Given the fluidity in geopolitical positioning, it is evident that a new world order is nowhere near us. And whenever it comes, its birth will potentially come with significant birth pangs. The year 2025 itself in military security sphere has been one of the hottest years with number of ongoing and fresh conflicts. This year has so far seen ongoing Russia conflict, conflict in West Asia, Iran-Israel conflict, Sudan conflict, Thailand, Cambodia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Israeli attack in Qatar on Hamas, and military operation by India in response to terrorism. And 2025 is not over yet. The breadth of these conflicts ranges from Africa, Middle East, Eurasian region, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. And of course, the concerns on conflict in Taiwan Strait remain on horizon. As worrisome the military picture globally is, the relative equilibrium also stands challenged today. The globally agreed multilateral trading arrangements, durability of supply logistics, fair and balanced dispute settlement mechanisms, all today seem most vulnerable. On one hand, countries of the global south face the arduous challenge of unsustainable debt created by predatory financing and related iniquitous trade and investment arrangements, while on the other hand, the development needs of developing countries are presented with the reality of unpredictable terms of access for their goods and services to other markets. The deglobalization and de-risking process has acquired significant momentum with the current unpredictability on trading policies. Both of these challenges, that is debt sustainability and unpredictability of trade policies, threaten the peace and development in large parts of the world. Both also exercise significant pressures on national sovereignty and choices. Further, the impact of military security conflicts on global logistics, supply side disruptions, and production capacity destruction cannot be overemphasized. Another important reality of current geostrategic landscape is in civil political domain. Earlier decades of 21st century saw color revolutions. These were mostly in countries which were not necessarily democratic. However, the current political instability, examples of which we saw in South Asia, are arising from the movements on the street and is being seen in countries which are democratic. I would leave you to your conclusion. However, what is clear to me is that even democracies are not immune, rather increasingly vulnerable to civil unrest and political instability. Yet again, it would seem that developing societies would remain vulnerable and bear the brunt of such civil political chaos more than any other part of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to my second part of thought, wherein I attempt to plug the above narrated current state of play in a medium trend perspective. I would, on my life, not hazard a long-term guess at all. The military security domain would continue to remain more volatile, with the threshold for military action only getting lower. The reasons will be the lack of order, failure of multilateralism, and a stupendous transformation in military technology. The old military equilibrium of nuclear deterrence stands severely challenged. The Russia-Ukraine conflict with support from nuclear powers is a case in point. More and more nations are resorting to more non-nuclear weapon capacities, such as thermobaric weapons, although with similar devastating impact. The advent of directed energy weapons, centrality of network-centric warfare with drones, autonomous vehicles, and standoff weapons has increased the military options on the table. This is also changing the military economics, if you may so call it. The coming decade will see faster transition to network-centric AI-enabled autonomous platforms. The centrality of aerospace, satellite, offense and defense capabilities with tech-intensive surveillance inventory has tremendously increased. All of this, in a sense, potentially increases a nation's ability to resort to military means, notwithstanding nuclear deterrence. The geo-economic future seems accelerating towards receding multilateralism, deglobalization, and withering of international trading principles and laws. With the failure of dispute redressal mechanisms, tendency to have bilateralist or regionalist approach to mitigate trade challenges will be preferred. As I earlier noted, these challenges will significantly impact mostly countries of the global south. We shouldn't be surprised to see countries resorting to self-interest and parochial approach to global trade. However, the opportunity to find a durable and beneficial trading arrangements in the form of regional and plurilateral blocs will be immense. Therein lies the potential of groupings such as BRICS, Quad, IORA, BIMSTEC, and from India's perspective, trading agreements we have reached with UK, UAE, Australia, Eastern European FTA, and our ongoing negotiations with India, Eurasia, and India Gulf strengthen our hands. All of the aforesaid trends are forcing redrawing of regional balance, in particular in Asia. During the Cold War, NATO and Warsaw Pact countries comprised 80% of world military power and GDP, which is less than 30%. On the civil political front, it would appear that the governments, whether democratic or other forms, would remain under increasing stress. The role of non-state actors in such an unrest, including leveraging tech platforms for fomenting and crafting adversarial domestic narratives, challenging the governance and institutional structure, will come under scrutiny. The known threats from non-state actors, terrorists, smugglers, armed insurgencies will only get sharpened. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, all of the above trends which I posit to you as devil's advocate presents us with following interpretations. The military equilibrium offered by nuclear deterrence will see continued erosion. Number two, aerospace, cyberspace, autonomous platforms, and AI-related military applications, evolution of non-nuclear ammunitions will aid lowering of conflict threshold. Change in military economics due to tech intensity will drive obsolescence of existing heavy platforms and new R&D. Regionalism and plurilateralism, both in economics and politics, will take increasing salience. Interest-based groupings and alliance will override ideology-based blocs. The trend of regionalism, emerging economies of the global south, including India, China, and with willing partners and capacities of the north, could lead this process of multipolarity. I would stop here, and I hope I have not crossed too much of my time. I look forward to be challenged on my propositions and happy to answer any questions down the line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Satyanjal Pandey, for setting the stage with adequate current geopolitical landscape coverage, and also highlighting how important it is to transcending the selfish interest and looking at multilateral and bilateral well-being of each other. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that. And with that being the strategic environment from the Indian perspective, and of course it is common perspective, I believe, let me now invite Mr. Francois Pretorius to discuss about future thinking, because you can't look at the strategic environment and find solutions without having future thinking. Future thinking, strategic foresight, and international security would be the subject Mr. Francois Pretorius will speak upon. But before that, let me briefly introduce him. Mr. Pretorius is a researcher of future system innovation at the South African Institute of International Affairs. He has led significant initiatives in youth-led futures, national projects focused on just energy and transition, not energy, just energy and transition, leading author of Beyond Linear Economies, envisioning the future of circular economies, as well as training in uncertainty, skills, foresights for just green hydrogen transition. He also served as Future Research Fellow with the UNDP in New York and holds a MPhil in Future Studies and BA in Value and Policy Studies from Stellenbosch University. Mr. Francois Pretorius, over to you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Just double checking that you can hear me. And I just wanted to say, ooh, can you see me on the screen? Let's see. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay, perfect. Fantastic. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. And I have to say, you set the scene brilliantly just in terms of the speakers and the moderator for everything that is going on in the world. So you've made my job a lot easier. I am going to share screen quickly and just go over to a presentation that I prepared. Let me just open it up quickly. Let me just slideshow it. Perfect. Okay. So Dr. Harindra, I met at the beginning of this year, and I have to say, I am so happy to speak to some of my favorite people in the world. I loved Sri Lanka. I was there for a conference. He asked me to speak about futures thinking and strategic foresight, so I'm just going to take you through that. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. You've already introduced me. Just want to say that I'm working for SIA, which is an international relations think tank, and it's been in existence for about 90 years in South Africa. The Futures program is only 5 years old, so we are the new kids on the block, but we specifically focus on strategic foresight and long-term planning, and we essentially, all of our knowledge that we create is freely available. You can check out the website and you will see it's all there. So, just in terms of futures thinking, to those familiar with the idea of futures thinking, sorry, you're going to have to sit through 3 minutes of just a little bit of like a rehash of what you know, but to those who don't know, let me explain. So the first time I heard the term futures instead of future, I was a little bit confused. But what this just means is that at any point, there's multiple futures available to us, and it all depends on our choices. So any choice that we make opens up different possible futures. So with that, because there are different possible futures, seeds of what we ideally want in the future to happen already exist today, and we have agency and influence just in terms of how we can shape them. So I like the analogy of a seed because if we water it, it will grow, ideally, and if we ignore it, then unfortunately it won't. But in this way, we've got agency to shape the futures. So I just wanted to highlight, it's a term that gets used a lot in terms of the two terms, futures thinking and then strategic foresight. They get used interchangeably, and that's not completely wrong. But the idea of futures thinking is it's an umbrella practice, and it's specifically about the mindset of thinking about the futures, but thinking about it in a structured way. Strategic foresight is a little bit more formal, and it's really institutionalized application of futures thinking. So it takes the broader exploration of what futures could be, and we specifically apply it to a specific, just topic that we are looking at, and specifically with regards to decision making, which is very key, and then resource allocation in terms of what will we water in order to grow the future that we want. So as I say there, in short, all strategic foresight is futures thinking, but not all futures thinking is strategic foresight, because futures thinking includes sci-fi, it includes a broad range of things. Then, just in terms of the importance of strategic foresight, so Richard Slaughter is one of the great-grandfathers of strategic foresight, and I like this definition. So it's the ability to create and maintain a high-quality, coherent, and functional forward view. The focus here is on anticipating new trends and eventualities, detecting adverse conditions, exploring best approaches, and guiding policy and shaping strategy. So why I highlight all of this is all of us think about the future. It's a natural thing as part of human nature. We think about the future constantly, we stress about it, we dream about it, etc. Strategic foresight takes that ability that we have and it structures it in a way that we essentially can see the wood for the trees, and we can work together to make this a little bit clearer for us. The value of strategic foresight, just in terms of continuing with it, is in the daily turbulence of change, which we just spoke about. It really is about shaping futures. It's a critical leadership skill. I want to make it clear that it's not about forecasting necessarily. We are not fortune tellers. We don't sit with crystal balls in front of us. We might use forecasts that were prepared or that we prepared ourselves and use those in foresight. But foresight specifically is about getting people together and reframing our perspectives, critically reviewing our current assumptions and paradigms, and then looking ahead. Last thing that I want to say, just in terms of the value of strategic foresight, is also it assists in widening the scope and creative framing of possible interventions. So it opens up our options and choices. It moves us away from the idea of the future is linear and one thing is going to happen after another, because we know that there's more options available to us. So I wanted to bring in two examples just of where it has been really successful in the past. There's been hundreds of different cases, but seeing as we are talking about strategy and security, one core one is the example of the US Coast Guard. So in 1998 and 1999, they implemented a scenario planning exercise looking at 20 years ahead. Because of that, they were very well positioned to respond to what happened on 9/11/2001. They essentially moved within one day from just 1 to 2% of their daily operations was port security. Within a week, it moved to 50 to 60% of their daily operations. And the main reason for this is because they had been doing foresight exercises and they were already stress testing just what may happen. They were obviously not thinking of what was going to happen exactly with 9/11. Nobody could have foreseen that, but they were looking at what if the worst was going to happen and how would we respond. From there, they've institutionalized this, and they've got a foresight cycle now, which is seen as the gold standard in US federal agencies. So they were ahead of the curve, but other US agencies are using it as well. And it really has created a culture of futures thinking that improved long-term planning for them, and then hand-in-hand real-time responsiveness. Bringing it back to South Africa, just with regards to the democratic transition, which is now 31 years ago, people were worried in South Africa just in terms of what was going to happen and what is the best way forward. So what happened here is essentially they brought 22 prominent South Africans, and these were across the board. They were not just politicians, but they brought them together to work on scenario planning and to think about different ways that the future could play out and how to prepare for it. So here they essentially developed 4 scenarios. So Ostrich, which was the first one, which is essentially a negotiated settlement. So the country continues to be non-representative of what is actually happening in the country, and a negotiated settlement is not achieved. Then they had Lame Duck. So here a settlement is achieved, but the transition is very slow. Icarus, on the other hand, was the transition is way too quick, and it moves to populist economic policies, and it crashes. And then the last one that everybody decided on, which is the best one, was Flight of the Flamingos, in which the government policies are sustainable and the country takes a path to inclusive growth and democracy. So Flight of Flamingos, it shared a simple, optimistic vision, just that South Africa could rise together, and this gave birth to the idea of the Rainbow Nation as well, and it really set the tone for specifically the first 10 years of democracy. It brought together leaders just across the spectrum, and it shaped the discourse just in terms of what happened going forward. So in South Africa, we love the Montflier scenarios because we were ahead of the curve and it worked for us. So what I thought is just, I'm going to take you through a quick approach just in terms of how scenario exercises work, because it sounds very airy-fairy and up in the air, but once you actually see it in practice, it's not that far-fetched. So essentially, first thing to do is horizon scanning. Horizon scanning is a core practice of futurists or strategic foresight practitioners. What it means is you look at the horizon, you look at things that could happen in the future that will affect you. So for instance, MIT in 2015 already said that a SARS-like virus would be the biggest threat to the global economy. Nobody really listened, and then COVID-19 happened, but with a horizon scan, you look at things like that. Then you look at the main factors and drivers, and the previous speaker wonderfully did an amazing job just in terms of highlighting the main factors and drivers and also doing a horizon scan of what is affecting us. And then you put them on a matrix, which I will show you now, and you essentially look at uncertainty and impact. Uncertainty is very key because if something is certain, you know how to respond to it. But if it's uncertain, you are not naturally predisposed to plan for it. And then obviously impact, you need to be ready for the most impactful things. So
we have 2 minutes, Mr. Pretorius.
Perfect, I will wrap it up. So just basically, previous speaker already highlighted all of these. You can see it's there in terms of great power relations, etc. I gave a rating to all of them. You can see on a matrix here, it goes high impact and high uncertainty, low impact, low uncertainty. You plot all of these on there, just in terms of, on the one axis you can see impact, on the other axis you can see uncertainty, and from there you can get 4 different scenarios. So these scenarios are essentially, you can look at the critical uncertainties, and this is really important, where you can see the great power relations are in a struggle, essentially nuclear, the mad, mutual assured destruction that we have in place now falls to the wayside. It really is a scary one. Then you've got managed competition. I will share all of these as well, but on the bottom right, you can see wildcards as well, which is like COVID-19, which could upset the whole apple cart. Just wanted to show you how this works in terms of thinking about it strategically and thinking about it bit by bit by bit in terms of working out different stories that we can work with, that we can plan for strategically and see where our blind spots are, how we adapt, and how we can foster dialogue and prepare for multiple possible futures. So, as I say there, scenarios don't predict the future, futurists don't predict the future, but they prepare us to anticipate shocks, adapt strategies, and strengthen resilience. So that's it from my side. I will stop sharing, and thank you for the time reminder.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pretorius set the scene to take the strategic environment that we have discussed, or to understand the strategic environment that we discussed from a future perspective. So future thinking, strategic foresight, and international security, they're all interlinked and all useful tools, and he gave us a few useful tools how to think of the futures in an uncertain world, at least with some degree of understanding. Well, now we are going to have a piece of ground reality. The strategic thinking and thinking of the futures cannot happen in a vacuum. It's happening in the current scenario where we are all in, which is driven by technology, advancement in technology, AI, and of course, bringing in cybersecurity concerns. To put those areas into the security perspective, we have an eminent speaker from the United Kingdom. Of course, he is a product of Sri Lanka, working and residing in United Kingdom for last 20 years, Mr. Nama Ramanan. Mr. Ramanan will speak on AI and cybersecurity, opportunities and challenges for critical national infrastructure. Let me introduce him briefly. He's a senior tech leader and UK's senior civil servant with over 20 years of experience, and he has been driving complex digital transformation initiatives in the UK. He's the current Deputy Director at the UK Ministry of Justice, Chartered Engineer by profession, and Fellow of British Computer Society and Institute of Engineering and Technology. He has contributed immensely to the academic disciplines as well. And interestingly, he is a commissioned officer of the United Kingdom's Armed Forces. He is a member of the 13th Signal Regiment of the British Army, which is dedicated for which is the only dedicated cybersecurity unit of the British Army. He's passionate about inclusion. We were having a chat before this meeting, before we came to the stage. In order to ensure that there is inclusion and impact on society, he co-founded Child Sparks. It's a charity organization empowering families of children with neurodevelopmental needs. Thank you very much for your service in that department, Mr. Ramanan. He's an alumni of the prestigious Oxford University. I need not say more. He will speak on AI and cybersecurity. Over to you, Mr. Ramanan.
Thank you. Good morning, sirs, ma'ams, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me today. I'm speaking today in my personal capacity, and we're going to talk about the opportunities and challenges for critical national infrastructure. Think about a scenario where the lights or the electricity has gone out throughout the country for days and months. It's not because of a bomb blast or a missile strike. It's because an AI-powered malware silently took control of the national grid. And think about the hospitals not functioning or the traffic lights not operating. That's the reality of modern defense. Wars may begin in the cyberspace long before they reach the battlefield. We may be planning bringing tanks, doing section attacks, planning everything, but the tank's GPS may be disabled way before we even reach out to the battlefield. So critical national infrastructure is all of the infrastructure which makes the country function. That could be power grids, the healthcare systems, the transport. And artificial intelligence is a new electricity. In the 20th century, we spoke about the oil. 21st century is the artificial intelligence and the modern technology. It could be cybersecurity, quantum computing, biomedical, and so on. But within defense, AI and cybersecurity plays a major part. Will AI become our most powerful ally, which protects us as a shield, or is going to be the most dangerous adversary, which is a sword against us? There are a lot of opportunities. And in terms of AI, it's fundamentally transforming how we secure our critical national infrastructure. For example, back in the days, we need number of security analysts to defend the infrastructure, where AI automatically detect and predict cyber attacks these days. If you want to mimic what AI does, we need tons of people, 24/7 eyes on. And AI is really good on machine learning, pattern analysis, which automatically detect within milliseconds, which is a key power. The second thing is there's a big opportunity in AI, and it's widely in use in many areas. You could automate playbooks. You could automate what a human should be doing. So in a defense scenario, if a cyber attack has happened and a system is infected, AI could automatically isolate that infrastructure so it doesn't spread further. So there is lots of opportunities in that. The other thing is resilience simulation. And again, I mentioned about section attacks. So before, when the cadets are trained, you practice the rhythms, you practice the battlefield rhythms, you practice your plans, you practice your section attacks, and so on. AI can be utilized in environment to mimic the environment, so things like digital twins. You can mimic those battlefields, but also you can simulate attack scenarios, preparing the troops before go to the battlefield. And there are lots of opportunities within the AI. But then it becomes, from a challenge point of view, while AI strengthens our defenses, it also empowers our adversaries with sophisticated offensive capabilities. The attacks is becoming smarter. So, imagine back in the days, if a hacker tried to attack a system, the defenses can be put in place. And if a multi-layered defense is in place, the attack will be neutralized. Whereas now, with the help of artificial intelligence, the attacks already learn about the defenses, and it's re-prepare itself to continuously attack depending on the defenses we got. So the attacks are getting smarter. And this morning, the keynote speaker and Vice Chancellor mentioned about the threat landscape is increasing. Every IoT device, Internet of Things device we have in the battlefield, it could be in the tank, it could be on the soldier, it's a potential threat for an attack. So the attack surface is widening up. And we spoke about the misinformation, disinformation. Again, manipulation can be also potential, because artificial intelligence is based on the data you train them, and the attackers could utilize or feed in bad data to influence their capability. So these are kind of the challenges we got. But from a geopolitical dimension, this is not about technology. This is about power, influence, and national security. And nations already developing AI-driven cyber tools as integral components of their strategic military capabilities. You may have seen, it's no longer Triforces, Army, Navy, and Air Force. You may have seen Cyber Command, Space Command popping up in countries. And disinformation campaigns. Again, you may have seen election influences and other examples in different countries. And international cooperation, again, a theme we have seen again and again today. This you can't defend in one. It needs to be an international cooperation. No single nation can defend against these threats in isolation. So what should we do? And what's the options we have? I think this is an important point where we are at. And AI won't wait for us. AI will either become our greatest ally as a shield in defending critical national infrastructure, or most dangerous adversary. What we need to do is three things, in my view. Invest in AI for defense. That's invest in talent, invest in capabilities, invest in technology, build secure, ethical AI. It's really important to, again, maintain transparency and resilient AI system that we can trust, protect our national assets. And the final thing is foster global partnership. Cyber and AI threats across borders. And as I mentioned, we can't defend as a single nation. We need to collaborate more partnerships with others, and that's a really key, because sharing the learnings and sharing the adversaries or threat intelligence is the way to defend. And it's no longer a technology. As I mentioned, it's a power, influence, and national security. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I hope you finished. I rang the bell, giving you the indication of last 1 minute. Thank you very much for finishing ahead of time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ramanan gave us an insight into a useful tool, but how it can challenge national security as well. Not only national security, many other aspects of national security. To deviate a little from the flowing conversation, yet remaining within the relevant aspect of our main topic, which is national security, let us now turn towards the environment. Environment perhaps wasn't a main subject of discussion in national security discourse, say 20 years ago, or maybe I would say about, let's say safely, 40 years ago. But since of late, environment has become a very critical factor in national security discourses. So to discuss about climate change as a new frontier for national security, we have with us today Major General Chamila Munasinghe, who is the third commandant of the National Defence College of Sri Lanka and contributing to the well-being of the intellectual growth of Sri Lankan Armed Forces. He's a gunner, so I'm proud to introduce him here. Commissioned in the year 1991, with an unblemished career of 35 years, he has held command, staff, and instructional appointments across a wider spectrum of military service. I'm not going to name the list of things that he had done because his 10 minutes will be finished by then. He has also served as the Adjutant General of the Sri Lanka Army and Colonel Commandant of the Sri Lanka Army Women's Corps. Let me invite Major General Chamila Munasinghe to enlighten you on climate change as a new frontier for national security. Chamila, over to you.
Just place it like this again. Before I move into my speech in proper,
Let me inform the respected chair that when I cross-checked that time allotted for each speaker was 15 minutes. If I have to conclude my speech halfway after 10 minutes, that it will be an incompleted one. Therefore, that pardon me that if I exceed, because for the 15 minutes I have prepared my presentation. Let's compromise to 12 minutes.
So thank you very much.
The respected chair, the CNI, Major General Vanika Surya, the Vice Chancellor, and most respected former Vice Chancellor, Major General Melinda Pires, and the respected Major General Gamini Hettiarachchi, and the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Bridging Frontiers, interdisciplinary research for sustainable progress. The theme of symposium is a very debatable one that integrated different fields to create platforms to present ideas on complex global issues. Accordingly, international security and its new frontiers have been chosen as a topic for this session. Based on that, for next 15 minutes, I'll be talking on climate change as a new frontier for international security. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at a pivotal moment in the history. Climate change is indeed became a major threat to the stability and security of the countries worldwide. It's clear and present danger for our planet that is being debated by scientists very often, discussed by the world leaders in numerous occasions, and series of conferences resulted signing number of agreements and the resolutions. But the question remains, what are the results that we have achieved so far? And as a result of these negotiations, agreements, and resolutions, have we been able to reduce the damage and the impact caused by climate change to the living beings and to the planet as a whole? Climate change acts as a threat multiplier that mainly intensifying existing social, economic, and environmental stresses to produce ranges of security threats. And I'm going to emphasize on resource security, migration and displacement, and geopolitical instability induced as a result of climate change. We'll see these in details. Changing of weather pattern directly impact on availability of essential resources like water, food, and energy. Let's explore these factors one by one. Droughts and changes in rain patterns strains water supply for drinking, sanitation, agriculture, and industry. The unequal distribution, coupled with rising demand, runs into flashpoints for disputes between nations and communities, creating hydropolitical conflicts. Extreme weather events disrupts agricultural production, leading to crop failures, livestock losses, and higher food prices. In the countries that agriculture is the primary livelihood, create food shortage that can lead into various challenging situations. Energy vulnerability has acted as a major frontier for insecurity, creating resource competition and conflict over supplies and infrastructure. Hydropower is very much vulnerable in changing rainfalls. Environmental degradation forces millions of people to leave their homes, creating both internal displacement and international migration. The influx of large number of environmental migrants can overwhelm economic and resource capacities that can lead to increased competition for land, employment, and social services, fueling tensions and conflict between host and migrant populations. That further strains on host communities, creating complex security challenges, manifesting as increased political instability, resource depletion, and social tensions. While most climate-related displacements occurs within a country, the number of people migrating across international borders is also increasing. Many nations are unprepared for this scale of movement, and existing international refugee laws do not cover climate-displaced people, creating legal and humanitarian challenges. Both internal and international migrations, especially when driven by conflict, disaster, or persecution, impacts on international security by altering demography, straining resources, creating social tensions, and potentially destabilizing regions and bilateral relations. As rural livelihoods became unviable, many climate migrants moved to urban centers, the process known as uncontrolled urbanization. This can strain already limited resources and services, contributing to social unrest, violence, and creation of informal settlements, increasing demands for resources, potentially driving to conflict and extremist ideologies. The challenges and security threats will amplify when displaced persons became vulnerable and be exploited by non-state actors. The interplays of resource scarcity and migration of displacement produce a complex of geopolitical risks. Amplifying conflict-driven drivers increases economic uncertainty, straining resources, disrupting supply chains that in turn fuel trade disputes and territorial. Melting of polar ice in the Arctic is opening up new shipping lanes and access to previously inaccessible resources. This will create a new geopolitical competition between countries and change of balance of power. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see that what are the mitigation actions and to resilience that world has taken. It is understood that to address these issues, a holistic approach is required that goes beyond traditional military and diplomatic measures. Invest in and implement integrated watershed management by introducing new technologies. Introducing climate-resilient agriculture is paramount important, and efficient irrigation policies that encourage sustainable farming are the other factors. Rapidly scale up clean and renewable energy sources, phasing out fossil fuels and carbon capture technologies to reduce emissions from power generation. Also, tackling climate-related geopolitical instability requires global cooperation, particularly aligning mitigation and resilient mechanism close with UN sustainable goals. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see that what actions and how this climate change is going to be impacted on Sri Lankan point of view. Sri Lanka, a low carbon emitting island nation, vulnerable to accelerating climate change, including extreme weather and rising of sea levels impacting its environment, economy, and society. Let's explore these factors. Especially deforested areas are extremely vulnerable to increasing frequency of floods, droughts, bushfire, cyclone, and landslides. As one of the world's 36 biodiversity hotspots, Sri Lanka faces threats to its unique and endemic species due to rising temperatures, altered rainfall patterns, and habitat degradation. Rising sea levels, ocean acidification, and increased sea surface temperature threaten maritime life, coral reefs, and coastal ecosystems that mainly impacting fishing industry and coastal conservation. Increased droughts and saltwater intrusion into fresh water threaten drinking water supplies and irrigation, particularly in the agricultural heartland of the dry zones. The 60% of the island, that is the agricultural dry zone, is severely impacted by shifting rainfalls, droughts, and saline intrusion. This reduces crop yields, threatens food security, and pushes small-scale farmers into poverty. The changing climate is very much susceptible to rise of vector-borne diseases like dengue and increase in waterborne illnesses. The impact of climate change, such as coastal erosion and crop failures, can force people to abandon their homes and migrate from rural to urban areas. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see that how Sri Lanka is going to be responsible for this. In response to climate change, Sri Lanka has developed national policies and framework that combine adaptation with mitigation effort coupled with Clean Sri Lanka program introduced by the present government. We'll have a look on this in detail. Sri Lanka finalized implementing National Adoption Plan framework that addresses key vulnerable sectors, including food and water security, coastal and maritime resources, human settlement, and biodiversity. Program focuses on livelihood diversification, raising risk awareness, and incorporating traditional knowledge into climate resilient practices. Protecting and restoring natural habitat such as mangroves help protect coastlines and maintain biodiversity. Sri Lanka aims to generate 60% of its electricity from renewable energy by 2030 and achieves carbon neutrality in the electricity sector by 2050. Sri Lanka has developed carbon net zero 2050 roadmap and strategic plan to transition towards low carbon pathways. Finally, plans include increasing forest cover by 2030 up to 32%. Let's see the challenges that Sri Lanka is facing in order to implement these factors. Despite having sustainable, extensive and comprehensive adoption and mitigation plans, Sri Lanka also faces challenges in translating policies into effective actions. Inadequate enforcement of existing environmental regulations, and there is a need to enhance technical skills and institutional capacity at all levels of government to effectively manage and monitor climate initiatives. The interconnected nature of climate risk requires integrated multi-sectorial solutions and greater coordination among government agencies and stakeholders. Regardless of this, climate change is real. It is happening and taking place dangerously. The Earth is warming up, and it is not caused by orbital variation, but it's mainly due to human activities and attitudes. The profound impact of climate change on international security cannot be underestimated. Rising temperature and changing weather pattern poses threats to a number of areas. The interconnected nature of climate change demands global collaboration and policy reforms to effectively address these threats and challenges. Collaboration among nations, policy reforms, and preparedness are crucial in mitigating the impact of climate change on international security. If the world power do not think positively and reach to a right action, yet for many generations to come, the only planet we know that living thing exists will continue to be polluted, and conferences will be held yearly, yet again, and again. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. Thank you very much, Major General Chamila Munasinghe, for that detailed update on climate-related challenges, the need for action, and the action actually are in place. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we had four wonderful speeches on key themes, key subjects that are related to our security discourse. It certainly was multidisciplinary. Dr. Pandey gave us an update on regional perspective with a global view, being an emerging major power, representing an emerging major power. And then we had Mr. Francois Pretorius enabling us to engage in futures thinking with strategic foresight and international security dimensions. And that was capped with AI and cyber dimension by Mr. Navaramanan. And of course, now we understand the challenges that are posed by the environment towards national security. Well, I think all of you must be eager to shoot your questions, but let me lay out the ground rules. In the interest of time, I would request you to limit to one question if you have a follow-up question, please include it into that previous question itself, because if you keep on asking follow-up questions, then the discourse will become one-sided and there is opportunity will be lost for others. So let us keep to one question. If you really have to ask a follow-up question, keep it at the end. If we have time, we will do that. And also keep your questions crisp. Reduce the remarks part of it and give the question so the speakers can address the question itself. And if you may agree, my fellow panelists, would you like to take one question by one question or about 2-3 questions at once so that you all can chip in? Okay. One by one is better, I suppose. Is it? So what about other side? Okay, I'm a middle ground man. I suggested 3 questions, you say 1 question, so I will have 2 questions each. So we will go by 2 questions at once, and then we'll pose it to the panel, and then we will get to the next 2 questions. First 2 questions, the forum is yours. Please raise your hands and speak up.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Air Commodore Vasant Mandru from Sri Lanka Air Force, NDC Sri Lanka. This is regarding new global threat or geopolitical issue that we are facing right now. This is weaponization of semiconductors and rare earth metal. Now, US is weaponizing semiconductors. At the same time, China weaponizing 7 rare earth metal out of 17, which is very necessary for technological advancement. And what we have come to the conclusion is who controls the rare earth metal controls the world. How do we do the technological advancement in starting with the cellular phone to jet or to submarine without this rare earth metal? It is a kind of a global threat. And how this kind of thing affects Sri Lanka, like small country like Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Commodore Gaurav from the Indian Navy, representing NDC Sri Lanka. And my question pertains to the information space. It is my view that in the future, the one who controls the information space will actually control the world or whichever space he wishes to control. And keeping in mind some of these recent incidents which have happened, like in Nepal, in Bangladesh, and previously Arab Spring, one sees how the information space is being utilized to, move the masses and motivate them. Narrative warfare, etc., etc. So my specific question is to Mr. Ramanan, how AI can be used to smell the coffee to arrest an attempt by a nefarious element to, spread a narrative which can be utilized to mobilize the masses. That's all.
Thank you very much, Air Commodore Vasanta and Commodore Gaurav, for the 2 questions. Let me open the forum for the panelists. Would Dr. Satyanjal Pandey like to address the first question, which is related to geopolitical issues, weaponization of semiconductors and rare metal? And the questions were, how can world progress in that environment? And also, how will that affect Sri Lanka in particular? I think that I will hold for Mr. Ramanan perhaps, because he has both world views. So over to you, sir.
Thank you for the question. I hope I'm audible. Yeah. So thank you for the question. I think I refer to my remarks on which I also mentioned the critical mineral, supply chain logistics challenge. So this is a challenge which is very, very much before us. I don't think we should get into this adversarial, framing of A country or B country weaponizing it. Rare earth is not rare, number one. What is rare, of course, is the value chain production. What Sri Lanka can do, what India should do, what other developing countries should do, that we should join hands and form joint initiatives of R&D, of value addition of critical minerals. We should joint initiatives of signing off on supply chain logistics, accessibility and durability. I think it's high time that some of us, we join and ensure that we get fair and durable access to rare earth and other critical minerals. So the solution to that is jointness, whether regionally or globally. If not globally, certainly regionally. So to my mind, the answer is very clear, that there has to be more and more regional initiative, particularly in rare earth, but also other critical minerals when it comes to access and value addition.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ramanan, would you like to add?
I think just building on top of this, first of all, acknowledging that supply chain attacks or supply chain dependency is a big thing. That's key. Again, joint ventures, build your partnership, foster the partnership is the answer for that.
Well, the second question from Commodore Gaurav was revolving around the control of information domain, and particularly focused on mobilizing masses, as we saw in Bangladesh, in Nepal recently, and even in Sri Lanka a few years ago. Do you have any comments on that?
In terms of counter disinformation, strengthen the detection and verification. So that could be AI-powered monitoring, fact-checking partnership is another one. And also build public resilience. That could be media literacy training and transparency in terms of communication. And one other thing is, as a country, there are certain things we can do on the policy and regulation where, platform accountability, for example, push for social media, for political ads, so, AI-generated content, so we can apply some policy balances on that. And again, cross-border cooperation is another thing. The intel is absolutely key. So again, solve it with partnerships.
Thank you very much. We have Mr. Pretorius thinking of future. Do you have any comments, sir?
Thank you so much. No, I just wanted to say it's firstly with regards to critical minerals or rare earth minerals. Thank you for touching on that it's not that rare. It's all about beneficiation, and that really for the global south, I agree with the idea that it's all about partnerships and it's all about developing our own capacity to actually use these minerals. So yeah, that would just be my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything to add? Anything to add? Well, thank you. Can we have the next 2 questions, please?
So I'm Brigadier Manjul Chansekar from NDC Sri Lanka. My question is straightforward. What are the possibilities of leveraging AI to mitigate the climate challenges?
Did I understand correct? Leveraging AI for mitigating climate change.
Exactly, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Brigadier General Haider from Bangladesh Army, representing NDC, Sri Lanka. My question is regarding AI. AI has become very much an important element in our life. It's using of our day-to-day activities. But at the same time, we hear a lot of detrimental things and the negative impact of AI. Particularly, we much of talk about the AI taking over the nuclear systems and then can initiate a nuclear war. And also, they can also capture the electricity grid, and then we can see that the shutdown in every aspects. So mostly now find that AI is the benefit of AI is less than the threat that is posing. In that situations, should we, the whole world, should not come forward to form some kind of regulatory about the use of AI, and so that it is not misused and it's used for the benefit of the people.
I couldn't get your name, sir.
Brigadier General Haider from Bangladesh.
Haider. Thank you, Brigadier Haider. Well, we have 2 wonderful questions. I think they are all connected. I would pose it to the entire panel. The first question was about leveraging AI to mitigate climate change. The second being AI being a tool with benefits as well as bringing in challenges, threats, whether there should be a regulatory mechanism. If so, I believe how.
Let me give you a few pointers on both of the questions. I think first one is around the climate change. One thing, I mentioned about the digital twins and utilizing AI to model things. So that's one of the things. With AI and the quantum power what we have, we should be able to model or predict, what's going to happen, how soon it's going to happen, and we could actually apply changes to that model and see what is the effect of that, rather than something happen and then we apply it afterwards. So, that's a gift in its own. So that will definitely help in that direction. The second question is around ethical use of AI, which is another thing I mentioned on the final 3 points. Yes, you can. I think every country needs to have regulatory, the policies and the guardrails or the guidance to use the AI in the ethical manner. But assume the adversaries may not necessarily utilize in that manner. So it's building partnerships to make sure we defend as a whole rather than defend in silo is the one. Because, people may not play by the rules. The adversaries may not play by the rules. So yes, internal usage of AI, how AI should be utilizing, absolutely. The rules will work, but partnerships is one thing, and sharing intelligence is another thing which we build upon, I think, from practical sense. So, do you want to add anything?
Please. Yeah, Manjulu, to answer your question, in fact, that he actually covered, what we have to understand is how this AI technology is going to be useful for the future. Because AI is the new thing that everyone knows that, what has introduced to the world. And most of the people are trying to rely on AI now, right? So that will be useful for we have to understand for the betterment or the destructive purposes. So there are two things, right? If we are trying to depend on the AI for everything, so you have to wait and see that, which side goes down and which side goes up. To make use of AI for the mitigate or to give information to the climate change related activities. So that can be useful. So because to curtail for misinformation, disinformation, and fake news, so lots of things. For example, excuse me, if there's anything that's going to be happen in future that can be identified by the AI technology, series of information that you have gathered, so that can be benefited for the use in future to mitigate the future damages. And also that AI technology can be useful for the to identify what really had happened previously, the climate change related activities, and put it into the system, and you can derive the information that what's going to happen in future. So those things, two things. And also that the awareness program that can be make use of the AI technology. So that is one of the most important area that we have to identify. Thank you. Mr. Pretorius, what is your view from down there, South Africa?
Thank you so much. So just on the second question, it is definitely, I agree with the idea that we need to work in partnership. South Africa, for instance, is struggling to keep up with the idea of AI policies, but at the AU level, at the African level, things are happening. But it is a global problem, not just with AI, that essentially governments are struggling to keep up with their policies as the technology progresses. So just want to bring it back to strategic foresight as a really key tool to have in your arsenal with regards to this, in order to be able to plan for long-term futures and to look at the worst-case scenario, but also the best-case scenario, and to prepare for it. With regards to AI and climate change, there's definitely detrimental impacts, specifically with regards to the data centers. We know they take a lot of water, they take a lot of energy, etc. So just in terms of the physical impact of climate change, they do have a detrimental effect there. But on the other hand, there's also wonderful benefits if it can be harnessed correctly in terms of building new buildings, using the AI for smart systems in terms of monitoring how much energy usage is actually happening and actually also diverting energy as needed within buildings. Same with regards to renewables. AI is much better adept than humans at essentially looking at where energy would be needed and planning ahead. So it's not an either or, it's a dance with AI and essentially finding the best ways that are beneficial for humans and not necessarily for the technology.
Thank you very much. Well, I think we can open the floor for 2 more questions. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Dr. Pandey. So my question is to you.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm day scholar Sean Bandar, a first year undergraduate, and I'm currently pursuing the degree in international relations. So in your sentiment, Doctor, you mentioned the rise of India and China for the world order. So my question is that currently India is the 5th economically. It's ranking among the 5th in the economical rates. So my question is that what kinds of challenges does India face in terms of international security in the when China is emerging now? So that's my question.
Well, thank you. Another question, please. Someone from here was trying to ask a question from NDC Group. Yes, please.
So I'm Admiral Jayant Bandar. This question goes to the Commandant of NDC. Basically, we have seen a trend of moving to green technology, and in that process, we can see that there are other challenges being met because the rare earth minerals and the maybe hydropower being used extensively in order to produce these green technologies. And there's a waste also, e-waste also another concern. Can we really, see a better version of becoming the green technology world rather than what it is currently?
Thank you. So we have 2 questions here. The first specifically addressed to Dr. Pandey, so I'm going to leave it to you about India's international challenges related. And the second question is about the rare earth minerals, which Chamila, I believe, will take. Dr. Pandey.
So thank you for the question. Well, I have already referred to some of the challenges. I've referred in generic terms, I mean regional and global, but I think a lot of those challenges are will be India's challenges, whether it's geopolitics, geoeconomics. So when we are talking of a disturbed trading order, we are talking not just of India, but we are also talking of India. We are also talking of China. We are also talking of other countries. When we are talking of the challenges on military security domain, new technologies, those challenges India will have to rise up to. Those challenges other countries will have to rise up to. So those challenges are India's challenges. Regionalism and plurilateralism. These will be the approaches which will be sought for. So for example, when we talk of Quad, when we talk of BRICS, IORA, Colombo Security Conclave, we are talking of those interest-based approaches, alliances. We are talking of SCO, we are talking of alliances which have convergences. As far as India and China are concerned, we are 2 large developing economies. India is 4th largest already, on its way to being 3rd largest in the next couple of years. China is a burgeoning economy, almost a developed country. We have many convergences, but we also have strategic differences, and which, as 2 big civilizational countries, we need to find way to maintain the equilibrium. We need to leverage our convergences, and that's something which is a work in progress. Both are responsible countries, and both as responsible countries will need to find ways to work together and may ensure that the Asian century is, really an Asian century. So that's one. On the issue of the AI, I wanted to just add to what our other speakers have said. On the global regulatory norms, there is already a discussion going on at the level of Conference of Disarmament on what regulations should be on AI applications. The recent military conflicts, in fact, if you have been following, where we saw the first uses of AI or algorithms in target identification. So we are, already in a territory where AI, countries like India, Sri Lanka, and others, we need to strengthen our regulatory, put in place our regulatory platforms before countries with AI intensity and AI capacities overwhelm our regulatory norms. So I think time is short for us, but we need to collaborate together to have these AI regulatory norms till such time the broader global AI regulatory regime comes into place.
Thank you. Jamila?
Jayant, to answer to your question, that I can give a short answer also, that I can give the lengthy answer as well. That short answer, if I give that, so far that we have taken has not considered about taking the new step about the green technology, new technologies to be introduced. And the long answer that I can give, so we have seen that even the recently concluded this UN Security meeting, General Assembly also, most of the world leaders have discussed, especially Trump also mentioned about this climate change, that what are the impacts going to be. So what we have to understand so far, so have we taken any effort to to mitigate or curb the situations what is existing at the moment to be before in hand of thinking about another step? Of course, as the Manjula asked the question about the AI technology, and the expert resource person from South Africa also, that he also mentioned that how we can use this AI technology in terms of addressing these issues. So, but if you, during my speech also, I mentioned that we need first and foremost the collaboration effort to mitigate and to address these issues first in hand. So, before in hand of thinking of another step. But the point is, if I am to take one example, so why we are still lacking for this, and so perhaps that young crowds may have not seen that video clip as well, the 1992, so maybe you all may have not born even. So one girl from Canada by the name of Seven Suzuki, she collected money to get the permission and come and address the climate change, climate-related conference at Rio, 1992. She was in the age of 12. So then again, after 20 years, 2012, she got an opportunity to attend for that same conference at this same city, Rio. So she asked the question from the audience. So I fortunate to address this conference when I was in 12. Now I'm, after 20 years, 32 years of age. So the discussions were held, and most of the international leaders, the world leaders were there, and resolution, as I mentioned, resolutions were discussed, agreements were signed. Where are the results? What actions that we have taken so far to address these issues? So speechless, no comment from the audience. And unfortunately, after another 10 more years, now she is in the age of 45. So the same conference was held last year. She asked the same question. So that is one of the key areas that we have to address. Even the General Assembly, most of the world leaders have addressed this, and they identified the requirement. But so what action has been taken so far before in hand of thinking of another area? But still, during my speech also that I mentioned, being a small country, Sri Lanka, in line with this Clean Sri Lanka program, so we have taken steps. In compare with the countries in the subcontinent, we are far ahead than that. We are not considered as the country with the polluted air, or that we are not contaminating the water resources or the air and greenhouse gases, so on and so forth, that it's very limited. So therefore that we can be proud. But still that the present government that has taken the steps to address, to see the future in 2050, that what we are going to do, 2030, that how much of the greenery has to be there, 30% of the forest has to be the forest percentage has to be up to 32%. So those are the actions that the Sri Lanka has taken. In other countries also same, but we can be proud.
Thank
so
you.
to address this one, that is the answer that I can give.
Thank you, Chamila. Let me ask Mr. Francois Pretorius, in your future research, future-orientated research, what green solutions have you come across that do not place extra strain on resources?
Thank you so much. So there's a lot of interesting things happening just in terms of, firstly, there's a lot of really good recycling methods being developed for solar panels, etc. So there's a lot of movement in that sphere. But then also there's sodium ion in terms of batteries. There's a lot of things happening, not all of them 100% circular or green. We're not there yet. But what I wanted to touch on with this is, even though we're not at the point where it's 100% green and recyclable, etc., with regards to all of the technologies yet, it poses a threat, but it also poses an opportunity. I wrote a paper a while back, just in terms of South Africa, for instance, with Africa industrializing in a green manner. There's definitely an opportunity for that is created with regards to, for instance, recycling. If South Africa can position itself as the recycling hub for e-waste related to renewables, so for instance, solar panels, etc., there's a big opportunity for the country with regards to that. We could position ourselves as the hub in Africa, and with that, it could bring in a lot of investment in the country. So I mention this because with Sri Lanka as well, with all of the different countries, it's not just doom and gloom. There's always opportunities for us as well. And in these opportunities, it will force us to think broader and deeper and to come up with our own solutions as well. At this stage, most of the solutions are coming, unfortunately, from the global north, but there's really interesting things happening in the global south as well. I worked with one organization in Tanzania, for instance, where they found a way of prolonging the life of solar panels. So instead of a solar panel ending up in landfill after 25 years, they manage now to extend it by about 10 years and take electricity to really rural areas in the country. So things like that stand out, and it's things that we can use as well.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, time is not really on our side, but I can open the floor for two more questions. Last two questions, please. Anyone? Yes.
Sir, I'm Air Commodore Udita Piyasena, again representing NDC Sri Lanka. My question is quite short. In terms of future technology, in terms of security, national security, we talked about the reducing role of nuclear threat. Maybe MAD, I think it was roughly mentioned that MAD may not be as relevant in the future, but I beg to differ on that concept because nuclear technology will remain because it's one of the cleanest energy sources at the moment, and technology can be used both for destruction purpose as well as for the benefit of the humanity. So the nuclear threshold, the threat will be remaining in my perspective, and it reflects on the recent agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan to get the umbrella going there. So what do you think on it? Am I right, or is that threat now slowly decaying, and can we one day rule out nuclear weapons from this globe?
Very optimistic question, but let's have another question before we hand it over to the panel. Last question, please. Yes. Okay, we'll take last two questions. We'll give Brigadier Vijayadas also opportunity. Hold on, Ranjan, after you.
So, Brigadier Kusal Ganegude, my question relates to internal political fragmentations and national security. I feel that due to internal fragmentations, we invite transnational actors to play as they wish to inside the country. for instance, accessing into advantageous positions and accessing into monetary activity, etc. So I think this is kind of a national security issue that we can see these days. So I would like to know your views, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Ranjan? Mike, please. Mike.
So I'm Brigadier Ranjan Vijayadasa, presently serving as the Director General, Institute of National Security Studies. When initially the US failed in pivot to Asia, the next initiative was the Indo-Pacific initiatives. On the other hand, the Chinese BRI. And when the initial Indo-Pacific initiatives were introduced and the quadrilateral movement with 2 Asian partners and 2 Western partners were the initial members. But later, there was another security alliance came up only with Western partners. So leaving both Asian partners aside. What are your views on that, sir?
Thank you. We have 3 questions. Let me sum up the questions. The first question from Air Commodore Piyasena is about a very positive view he has of the world, about reducing relevance of nuclear technology, whether that's a reality. And Brigadier Ganegoda was asking about internal fragmentation and how its impact on national security, if I'm right. Well, then Brigadier Vijayadasa's question being alliances such as Indo-Pacific, Chinese BRI, etc., how the impact of those in terms of regional as well as national security. I'll open it to the panel, please. Dr. Pandey, would you like to take up first?
Thank you for all the questions. On the first question of nuclear relevance, I think I was slightly misunderstood. First of all, I would agree with your comment that nuclear technology is important technology. It's an important source of energy. As an energy deficient country, India particularly values it. So therefore, nuclear energy will remain for the foreseeable future and should remain. So that's one. My limited point in my remarks on the nuclear part was with the development of non-nuclear weapons platforms like hyperthermobaric, weapons and directed energy weapons, use of AI, the technology asymmetry, the countries will be probably more have more options to take military choices than perhaps let's say 10 years or 15 years back. We are seeing the Russia-Ukraine conflict, although nuclear weapon holding powers are involved, particularly Russia, but the conflict goes on. Our own experience in Op Sindoor tells us that there could be military choices within a nuclear deterrence framework. So my limited point was that as technology evolves, this nuclear deterrence will see erosion, not obsolescence, but erosion. So that's my only military perspective. That's number one. Number two, on the issue of the domestic intervention of foreign players. As I referred to my remarks, I had divided into 3 parts. That's the military security, number 1. The other was economics, and the third was civil political domain. So yes, as we see, as democracies, India, Sri Lanka, others, we will be facing, our governments will face steep challenges to rise up to the expectation of people. These are globally connected people through tech, through internet, through various means. We cannot ban expression of thoughts. We are democracies. But what we need to do is to have regulations. What we need to do is to have national response systems. What we need to do, have responsive governments by the day. So I think that is the best bulwark, a responsive government and accountability mechanism through media, through public. That is the best bulwark against any external intervention in domestic affairs. That's point number 2. The third question was on, I think Major General asked for, on the Indo-Pacific.
US Indo-Pacific as well as Belt and Road Initiative.
So, sir, my own submission is that, BRI is a totally different construct. The Quad grouping or any such other grouping is a different construct. So, as I mentioned, we are living in times of alignments based on interest. BRI is a different concept. It's a concept of capital financing, debt financing, and leading to, From Chinese perspective, of course, it's development, but from other perspectives, we have seen the consequences of those debt unsustainable projects. So that's one part of, system. The other part is what you asked, the Indo-Pacific. So this is not a military or even economics. So for example, if you take Quad, now what does Quad do? Quad is talking about infrastructure development in Indo-Pacific. Quad is talking about capacity building processes. Quad is talking about humanitarian initiatives such as supplying vaccine, Quad vaccine initiatives. So again, this is a grouping which is talking about interests which converge in this particular area. So these are two different groupings, and they are not necessarily at odds. And as I mentioned earlier in my answer, that we should not take these groupings as adversarial binaries. These are not. I can have A choice, I can also have B choice. I can make choices which are good with A grouping. I can also make choices which are good with B grouping. So we should not try to put ourselves, whether Sri Lanka or India, in a either or situation. India and Sri Lanka and other countries also have the capacity and agency to exercise choice, aligning with various groups and working for its own interests.
Thank you very much. Mr. Francois Pretorius, any last thought?
So I couldn't agree more just with the last speaker in terms of it's definitely a both and, it's not an either or. And I think South Africa is quite good at that in terms of international relations, where we tread the line quite carefully. And then just with regards to nuclear, I definitely don't think nuclear technology is going anywhere in terms of power generation, etc. Also, I don't think there's going to be massive disarmament, which is quite sad, but I do speak from the only country who willingly gave up their nuclear weapons program, so it is possible. It can happen. So at this stage, that's just my adding to it, but it's definitely, I think with everything, it's more about a both and than an either or mindset that we need to embrace.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, being the chair, I think I have the privilege of asking one last question, particularly from our expert from a geopolitical point of view from Dr. Pandey. Chamila, in his presentation, mentioned about the opening of Arctic, the frozen seas, and changing of the sea lanes, obviously along with it, the geopolitical realities of the world. Since you have been in Russia for some time, and of course Kazakhstan thereafter, you must be having a bird's eye view of Arctic that we are not privileged of having. Any comments on that? How will that impact us in the warm waters of the Indian Ocean?
Look, first of all, sir, thank you for the question. India is also part of the Arctic conversation. We have a station in Arctic region, as well as we have a research station in Antarctic. And this is not new. This has been there for some last few decades. So from our perspective, again, when we see at Arctic or we see at Antarctic, the north ice shelf or the southern ice shelf, these are part of global commons. And from how we see that is like global commons. So whether it's climate, whether it's seas, international, whether it's talking about Arctic, these are global commons, and we have to find ways of reaching a convention where we can share them. The climate change impact, of course, Major General has already articulated, so that will reflect over there. But the climate change is opening up now new navigable ways. It is also opening up new possible natural resource discovery or exploitation or exploration. So I think as a responsible country, being part of it, we are engaged with partners and stakeholders to find a way that, again, the global commons are shared in a fair and balanced and a sustainable, fashion. But again, it's a conversation which is ongoing. So as a diplomat, one part of my job is to remain optimistic. So I would urge all of you to remain optimistic.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to our panel. We had a wonderful discussion, particularly focused on bridging the frontiers. We are in an era where it can either break or make. So let us all hope that we will make a safe future for all of us, all of humanity. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for my dear panelists. Thank you very much for the wonderful audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the intellectual and thought-provoking, insightful session.
Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to appreciate and honor the intellectual who broadened our horizons over the past hours. Honoring the call from General Sir John Kutalavala Defence University. To do the honors, now I respectfully invite the chair of the session, accompanied by the moderator, to give away the mementos to the presenters of the session. I kindly request, once the names announced, the presenters to come forth and receive their tokens of appreciation.
Dr. Satyanjal Pandey, High Commissioner of India in Sri Lanka.
Mr. Nava Ramanan, Senior Civil Servant, Ministry of Justice, United Kingdom.
Major General Chamila Munasinghe, WWE, RWP, RSP, USP, NDC, PSC, IG, the Commandant, National Defence College, Sri Lanka.
Thank you, sir. Please remain on stage. Now I respectfully request the Vice Chancellor. Sir. Yes. Now I respectfully request the Vice Chancellor, accompanied by the Dean Faculty of Defence and Strategic Studies, to present a token of appreciation to the chair of the session. So thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have reached the end of Plenary Session 1 in Defence and Strategic Studies. I once again extend my heartfelt gratitude to the eminent panel of speakers of the Plenary Session in Defence and Strategic Studies for their valuable thoughts, and to the distinguished invitees. We hope to see many of you tomorrow at the technical sessions.
We respectfully recall Mr. Pistorius, who joined us from South Africa online. We are honored by your presence. We would like to thank all of you joining patiently with us. We would like to request you to proceed to Beige Bistro and KDU Cafeteria for the lunch. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Stay safe and have knowledge-provoking, insightful days ahead. For the motherland, forever.